just a few seconds. We'll get started. If anybody's got a phone, we'll go ahead and ask you if you've got it. If you check it to silent, please. We would appreciate that. All right, anybody that won't be here is here, so thank you all for coming out. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. As is our practice, we like to start with a pledge to our flag and a brief moment of prayer. If you'll join me in that, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father, we thank you so much, Lord, for yet another opportunity to come and conduct our county business. Lord, this is a special time of year. We just satisfied and enjoyed a very good Thanksgiving season. We are aware, Lord, of some families that are struggling with recent losses, some tragic accidents over the holidays, and I pray that you'll be with those families. See us safely into our Christmas season, and may we approach it with the right purpose in our heart, Lord. Forgive us of all of our many sins, and if we do anything at all here tonight, Lord, I pray that it'll be pleasing to you. We ask it in your name. Amen. Okay, right off the bat, I'm going to ask the commissioners for a little latitude. We don't, has not been our practice to approve an agenda routinely, but I would ask if it's okay. We have one item listed as number 7, which was to discuss a resolution to amend a certain section of our purchasing policy. And we have looked at it and feel there's a little bit more work that needs to be done on that than just the one section. And rather than make a partial attempt, I feel like if we could move this, we're not facing any emergency that we know of, but I think we'd ask for about another month extension on that, maybe bring it back up next month, if that's okay with the commission.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So we'll dispense with item 7. Okay. We're going to get right into the hearing and actions on zoning matters, and we have 5 applications to visit tonight, and with that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Houston, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. First rezone request this evening is Seth Cates, who is representing Mike Alloline. He's requesting to rezone 4.81 acres from A1 to RR for 2 home sites. Property is located on House Holloway Road on map 64, parcel 61A in District 4. The vote of the Planning and Zoning Commission was a vote of 4-3 to recommend approval of the rezone request.
Okay, again, what we do is we're going to give the applicant the opportunity to comment, make any statement that they wish to in support of this request. Then we'll take comments from those that would like to oppose, and then I'll give the last opportunity for the applicant or representative to rebut that. So with that, Mr. Cate, is you here?
Yes, sir.
Do you care to add anything to Mr. Houston's comments, or are you satisfied that he represented or stated what you needed out of it? You're welcome to come forward if you like, if you want to add to it.
Like you said, basically we're just taking a 4-acre tract and dividing it up into 2 different lots. We're going to build 2 residential homes for sale. And when we get finished, with it, of course, we'll be make it as nice as possible to be able to sell.
Just so I'm clear, is there a home on the property at all right now?
There's not a home.
Okay, all right, so one home on either parcel. I mean, that you're suggesting you're gonna build one, okay. Okay. All right, well, very good. If you're satisfied, then what we'll do is I'll entertain other comments, and I'll give you a chance if you wanna speak, if somebody has something that you'd like to clarify, so.
Okay.
And folks, with that, I'll open the floor for any, comments that would, be in opposition to this application. Yes, ma'am. And if you would, can I get you, I hope it's not uncomfortable for you. Yeah, that's all right. If we just have your name, please, and say that first name again, ma'am.
Linda,
Linda. And ma'am, where do you live?
on 191, adjoining this land.
Okay, Highway 91, 191. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Well, I mean, everybody around there is either chicken houses or cows or whatever. We don't have any lists, and, you know, I just don't think 2 houses on 4-point-something acres of land be appropriate right now.
Okay, all right. Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in opposition of it? I don't see any. At this time, I'll go back to Mr. Cate. Is there anything that you would like to add? Any comment before we take a vote on it, sir?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, we'll close the hearing and we'll come back to our public meeting, our business meeting rather, and at this point, the request is to rezone the 4.81 acres from A1 to RR for the 2 home sites. I'll entertain a motion and then we'll have discussion.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second, have some discussion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All right, we will, whatever comments or discussion you'd like to entertain at this time, please.
Yeah, I noticed our planning and zoning board had some discussion on this one, the close vote. I guess my concern, or the way I look at this, if you would, is we're taking an A1 that's surrounded by A1. I realize there's A2 across the street, but I guess, in my personal opinion, it does seem out of place, for that. And just, and I haven't heard any conversation of, hardship or whatnot that need to be taken into consideration, so, I doubt I'll be voting for the approval of this.
Anybody else?
Well, my thoughts are the same. I don't know that it's appropriate in the area. Looks like to me that, unless there's some circumstances I don't understand why we would be building 2 houses for sale in that area. Unless, most of the time when we're doing something like this, where we have this small acreage and we're putting it into an area where there's already this agricultural group, is usually to accommodate some families or whatever that are in the area, so. I haven't heard of any extenuating circumstances in that. These are just for sale to the public, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I mean, there would be residential homes for sale for, spec homes. I mean, not to say the person across the street wouldn't want to upgrade and buy the one that I'm building was,
I understand that.
Anyone else? All right. Well, I have a motion and a second to approve the rezone. And with that, I'm gonna start with Commissioner Allen.
Yes. No.
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 Okay, Mr. Cape, that was denied 4-1 on that, sir. All right, Mr. Houston, we're on to our second application then.
Okay, the next rezone request, Joyce Raines is representing her mother, Bessie Hill. She's requesting to rezone 2 acres of her 20.18 acres from A2 to R to give to her daughter. Property is located on Farm Road on map 71, parcel 105, in District 5. The vote of the Planning and Zoning Commission was a vote of 7-0 to recommend approval of this rezone request.
Okay, is Ms. Raines present tonight? Would anybody, would you care to make a comment, ma'am, or add to that?
Well, not really, we was gonna put a mobile home on it, and so my mother was just gonna give me the land, you know, to use for the collateral to get the mobile home. So,
Okay.
that's all.
All right.
It's all her property anyway.
Okay, well, I understand.
Mhm.
All right,
Yes, sir.
thank you, ma'am. I'll give you a chance if anybody speaks in opposition, you'll have, well, either way, you'll have an opportunity to finish out that public comment on this. Is there anybody here tonight that would speak in opposition to this request? Anybody at all? All right, Ms. Raines, are you satisfied with that then? We're gonna go ahead and close that out and vote on it, is that all right?
Yes.
All right. We will close the public hearing and open up our business portion on this matter. Then the request is to rezone 2 acres of 20.18 acre tract from A2 to RR. I have a motion.
So moved.
I'll say that.
I have a motion and a second to approve this rezone request. Any discussion on this?
I'd just share that I'm looking at the zoning map, that it's kind of tucked in, and it's surrounded by that, and the continued, the 22 acres that it's being cut out of is already kind of discombobulated with that other 1 acre, or one other tract in the middle, so I think it does seem appropriate there to have that one little corner piece match up to the lot.
Well, that other piece is my brother's piece, and he's selling me the land, the piece that's in the middle of it. So he's selling it to me for $50, so it's all gonna be mine.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on that then? Not seeing any. We'll go ahead with the vote. Commissioner Strickland?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, ma'am. Got that 5-0 approved. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Houston again, please, sir.
Next rezone request is from Nicole Bloom. She's requesting to rezone approximately 2 acres of her private property from A2 to RR. One would like to sell the storage building and the pool to her neighbor. This will give her at least 2 acres with her home. The property is located on Hardman Marsh Road on map 59, parcel 96L in District 5. The vote of the Planning and Zoning Commission was a vote of 7-0 to recommend approval of this rezone request.
Okay. Nicole Bloom, is anybody here, would you care to add anything or make a comment on that now?
Yes, the idea was to sell to my neighbor, and if we when she gets older, things change. The land is gonna go to one of her children or to my granddaughter, they'll sell it back. So it's kinda like, I guess what I'm saying is if my granddaughter moves into the house, then there's not gonna be a conflict with the two properties together.
You're trusting, no, I understand what you're saying, you're a trusting soul, and I trust that that's your heart's desire to do that, so if that's what you wanna do, I think that's what you're requesting in this, so it's clear to me.
Well, both parties, it's like Howard's family, she's the next door neighbor. It doesn't matter, she's not gonna sell it to a stranger, she has 3 children, so one of the children will get the land, they'll decide on that.
Okay.
And then we talked to my daughter, will also, like, doesn't have a problem, it will kind of stay within the 2 families.
No, that's no problem, like I said, your request, you're able to do, you're perfectly able to make this request. I think all that, your reasoning and everything is your reasoning, and I'll be satisfied with that. I just, it will leave it up to the board to make that determination, but,
I'm not, I guess I was just trying to explain, it's not that, if they did sell, I mean, I'm not gonna not sell it to them, you know what I'm saying? If later on they say, oh, I'm gonna sell my house for some reason.
right.
But it's probably not gonna happen.
Okay, all right. Well, very good.
That came out right.
Is there anybody here tonight that would speak in opposition to her request to do this? Anybody at all? Ms. Bloom, you okay with everything? If you,
Yes.
okay, we'll go ahead and have the commissioners vote on this one then, all right? All right, so close the public portion. Our business decision then is to, the request is to rezone 2 acres of a 5-acre tract from A2 to RR. I'll take a motion when ready.
I'll make a motion for approval.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on this one?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Now that I made the motion, I do have questions, should concern. On the application that hit me today when I was rereading this, there's a notation on the second page, request for commercial purposes for state highway. Is that a oversight? I didn't understand the purpose of that comment. Is that just a leftover? Cut and paste, kind of. Takes care of that. And then my concern with this is, similar to the previous one, or earlier tonight. You got several 5-acre tracts that are lying there, we're cutting off the back end of it. I realize there's like 3-acre tracts generally across the street. I guess I'm concerned that if we cut off some property that's a neighbor, can it be formally attached as part of the zoning, as part of the conditions of it, if that's the desire of the board? Because if not, we're basically creating 2 lots that are non-compliance with the 5-acre minimum. Because if you don't attach it to the other property, that's 2 lots, and then what do you do with, somebody wants to, then that's either a non-conforming lot that we may buy by right, or does that person have to come back and get a rezon and do something with it? And does that create additional driveway issues, whatnot? Are we creating a landlocked piece of property? So I have, if it was partially zoned, or the premise was to
cut some of the property off if it continued to the back property line, I'm assuming, and I also don't know what side I'm assuming is the 096K lot that would be buying it, because that's where the pool and whatnot is closest to. So I've got some procedural concerns with it, as well as just creating an additional non-conforming lot.
I don't know if any of those questions were brought up in the planning and zoning meeting. So,
I think that's fine. The motion could be amended to add a condition that the remaining acreage not being rezoned be combined with the adjoining lot on the real estate records. That condition would take care of Commissioner's concerns, I believe.
okay. And of course, we'll come back to Ms. Bloom at the end and ask her if that's gonna be okay with her on that as well. So, if after the discussion here, I'll make sure that it was part of her intent. Are there any other comments in addition to those? Good point. Go ahead. Anybody else? And I'm satisfied he probably explained what we were asking. I just want to make sure that you understood what his concern or his question was. Is typically when if you divide a parcel or whatever, and it doesn't conform or it's not consistent with other pieces of property in that area, it's usually the practice not to, or we try to stay away from the non-conforming applications or the, so.
It was going to become part of their property.
Okay, you understand when they vote, that they could possibly amend their motion to make it contingent upon that happening though, is that correct? Was that the, your recommendation? Okay, I just wanna make sure that was real clear. Okay.
So procedurally, the motion needs to be amended now?
Correct. So the motion and second was to approve the rezone as presented. If you want to amend Commissioner Doster, then since you made the motion, if you want to amend that to include the condition of the stipulation that be adjoined with that other piece of property. I don't know if it was 96K. I don't have that in front of me, unfortunately.
I'll make that amendment to the rezoning request be approved with the condition of that the remaining lot be physically joined with the neighboring property.
Okay.
Does that satisfy you, Mr. Attorney?
That's, as long as there's no objection from any board member, then that's fine.
And I'll second that.
Well, we don't actually
Do I have to
have,
second the amendment?
as long as there's no objection, it stands amended.
Okay, so that's what you're gonna be voting, yeah? No, and that's what you'll be voting on, okay?
Correct.
So, motion and a second with the amendment to approve the application from A2 to RR with the condition that remaining 3-acre tract be joined with the other existing parcel that was mentioned. Do I have any questions on that, Tim? Okay, the vote then is to Commissioner Bettis.
Yes.
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 Okay, all right. Clear that. All right. Chairman Houston, item number 4.
Mr. Chairman, the next rezone request is Janet Ayers is requesting a conditional use permit for a dog kennel on two sets of properties. One is on map 72, parcel 22-10A, which is 6.4 acres, and parcel 22-11A, that is 5.89 acres. Property is A2 and is located on Wagner's Road, Church Road, District 5. The vote of the Planning and Zoning Commission was a vote of 4-3 to recommend denial of this conditional use permit.
Okay. All right. Ms. Ayers present or a representative? Please. Are you Keith?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Keith Ayers, yes. All right, Mr. Ayers. Is there anything that you'd like to add to what Mr. Houston just presented by way of the request? Any clarification or any additional information?
No, I didn't hold on, we discussed, so I'll just let, everything that I've heard him say, I'll call that first too.
Okay, I'll give you that opportunity, certainly will. Okay. All right, is there anybody here tonight that would speak in opposition to this request? You, sir, first. And name and address, sir.
Danny D'Angelo, 4420 Sean Lane, Cumming, Georgia.
Would you spell your last name?
T-A-T-A-N-G.
A-N-G.
And tell me one more time, city?
Cumming, Georgia.
Okay. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I own property 2211 there, alongside the back, I guess in front of the side, the Ayers property there, which was a place we were gonna end up retiring. Our concern is, as we've stated in previous meetings, all our concerns for having a commercial business in that area down a dirt road. We had concerns of bad traffic, the business itself being open for appointments on the weekends. That particular property they have runs alongside mine, the driveway goes right alongside all the way to the back. So the traffic down the dirt road, we talked a lot about some of the disposal, how they're gonna handle that. Just the road could handle all that stuff, the amount of dogs that will be there for a kennel. And it's, taking care of dogs 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. Noise, also the disposal of the waste. We felt that was an issue. There's no really fire suppression down that road anyway. I don't know who will control that road now with that much more traffic coming down that road. It was a place where most of the people down there have 5-6 acres that we either bought or retiring there, and I plan to. I had my life savings ready to retire, and bought property there, and then ended up having this show up and deciding we don't have to do that. I take it with everything in the meeting, you guys already have a lot of the information from the previous meetings, of what we brought up and stuff.
We do have some of the information from our planning and zoning meeting, but that's why we always give you the opportunity to present whatever you feel necessary to.
Well, again, it was just the noise level through the night. I mean, we, next to a dog kennel, we've discussed that. It's, you live in a neighborhood where one dog barks, and I don't know how it's for all of them. And since we're probably the closest, we'll probably have a house probably on the property when we go to build, because I have a permit to build things now. Again, we were worried about the waste of traffic. It's just in a commercial business down there, I don't think that's a great place for it. Especially with what's out there with the property that's there and the people that are gonna be living there and what they end up doing on their property.
Okay.
Any questions, anything?
When do you plan to retire?
Well, I hope within the next 7 years, maybe less.
Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you. Anybody else tonight that would like to speak in opposition?
I would.
Okay,
Belinda Ogle, O-G-L-E, 2251 Flamingo Road, North Fort Myers, Florida. When I purchased this property 10 years ago, in hopes of it being my retirement home, we were told it is, yes, zoned Ag 2, with residential areas out there, meaning understanding that there wasn't gonna be commercial businesses in those areas, that those lots were up for sale. So when I heard this come up, it was a bit shocking that would be allowed. Don't know the rules, I know I've lived in Florida, but my intent is to come up here and not live next to 30 to 40 breeding dogs every day. And, that's about it.
okay, that's fine, thank you. Is there anybody else tonight? Yes, sir.
Good evening. is Richard Ward. I live at 1705 Wagner Grove Church Road. And I'll start by saying, look at everything he said. And we already retired. We got here 12 years ago trying to get away from businesses in the city and noise and all that. This area was a lovely rural area, was an old farm, we were told. And the developer had split it up into 5-acre plots, run electricity in there, and it was obviously selling it to people who wanted to build houses. You knew that we knew it was rural and farm, it was owned, but nobody farms 5 acres. So anyway, that's where we've been for the past 12 years. But we don't want a business, commercial business in the area either. This is where we hope to get away from all that sort of thing in our retirement. The traffic, the noise from the dogs, I'm told it's a quiet breed. Well, dogs are dogs. One barks, they usually all bark. And, you know, you can't blame them for that, they're dogs. Okay? We prefer it work in my backyard, and where I think this gentleman is, or is going to be, is basically in my backyard, next to the lot. I have 3 lots, and it's really backed up into one of them. For whatever it's worth, I've gotten some figures here from the work of my lots and my son's next doors and 2 or 3 neighbors, and they're all substantial. We have invested heavily in this area. Mine's worth more importantly, and my son's a little over $300,000, and the other 2 or 3 are similar. These are numbers that came off the county records, the assessment. That's what the land's assessed at. Besides the noise, we're troubled about the possibility of the waste, what they're gonna do. It's an awful lot of waste for a small area. And the ground is sloped, it goes down to a creek, which runs through most of our properties. And my grandchildren and their dog and everything loves to play in the creek, but, you know, not if it becomes polluted. The traffic, I think I might have mentioned, the last thing I would mention would be the precedent it sets. If we change zoning to do this for something other than people building a house, what's next? And that's all I'll say.
All right. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay.
I will, Gina Ward, 1709 Wagner's Grove Church Road. Good evening. I just wanted to mention that I'll follow up on the research. Lots 5 and 5A combined total is over $200,000 on the tax assessor's site, so we know it's worth substantially more. 6 and 6A, 183,000. They're over 250,000, and my lot's over 300,000 on the tax assessor's site. We have all invested ourselves heavily in this area, and we would just like to not have commercial business as a neighbor. We would rather have a homeowner that invests in their home. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I ask the question again?
Go ahead.
The continuous use permit, how does that work? Is that something we have to keep coming back for, if we keep applying for it? Or can it be changed?
I'm not sure on that.
It's not continuous, it's conditional, so
Okay.
if it's granted, it just becomes part of the zoning designation.
Yeah, conditional, exactly. It's just, it's a change, if you will, or an addition. Further identifies or limits the use of a parcel. Okay, any last comments in opposition? I'm gonna go back to, Mr. Ayers, if you'd like to say anything, I'll turn the floor to you, sir.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same things we talked about before. As far as the noise goes, I mean, we've been in our current location for going on, 30 years now. And to our knowledge, we don't have anybody that's complaining about it. I don't know if the county or anything has received complaints, but nobody's complained on this personal. Waste disposal, we have a pretty efficient way of getting rid of any animal waste, and we're state inspected here. So we meet those requirements and everything every year. I mean, other than that, I'll,
You know,
questions.
Its current location, how is it zoned? Where you're located right now?
I'm Austin, actually.
Yeah.
It's in, Hull, Georgia.
Right. Right.
City. What breed is it that you're,
We breed golden doodles.
Oh.
It's a golden retriever poodle mix.
how many do you have now that you've seen?
Right now, we have around 50-55 or so.
How many more you be adding?
We're actually gonna be downsizing. I can only have maybe about 20, 30. Because I'm taking it over from my mom, so I'm gonna leave has and dogs.
And your reason for moving, I might ask?
Just to, well, the biggest reason was to get out of the, away from the city, so we could get farther away, and, have less chance of wandering. And plus, the more room we have, the more room we can put dogs.
Any other questions? All right, sir. Thank you very much. We'll close the public portion of this hearing. Before the commissioners now, the application is with the, it's currently zoned A2, and they're looking for a conditional use to operate the kennel. And it's involving both parcels, 6.4 acres and a 5.89 acre parcel on Wagner's Road, Church Road. So,
Chairman,
please.
if I may, before we make a motion, I just wanted to ask our attorney, if we could address a couple of the concerns that the folks had in a motion. I guess maybe I should make a motion, and you can tell me if it's okay or not. That might be a better way to do it. I was wanting to make a motion to approve, but I wanted to put two conditions on it. One was, the gentleman here made a great point about the conditional use permit, when it would expire, if it expires. And so I'd like to make it where it expires when there's any change in the ownership of that property. And so if the heirs were to sell the property or move away, that conditional permit would expire. And then second, I know that listening at the planning and zoning meeting and things like that, it seems that the noise is really more at the feeding time. That's kind of the when they get loud. I've been around those dogs, been around, and those are the loud times. I'm sure Mr. Ayers would probably agree. And so if we can make, the feeding must take place between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. That way, there wouldn't be any feeding late night, things like that. That would be something maybe that you could go back and say, hey, they're not supposed to be feeding at 8 o'clock. They're feeding at 8 o'clock. So I was wanting to make those two, I guess, restrictions or
Conditions.
Conditions on the conditional use. And that would be my motion, but you can tell me if that's proper or.
Generally, conditions, of course, are enforceable as long as they're, rationally related to some, valid objective. The one that, I've never heard of a time limit or an ownership limited one like that. I mean, the use is the use typically, and it doesn't matter who's the one operating that use. I suppose worst case scenario, if that motion passed, and at the time ownership changes, the neighbors might find that condition was not enforceable, so.
But I can still put it in there.
You put it in there.
Because I want to make sure it's in there, because it'd probably be the court that would have to decide something like that. Well, that is my motion, as it stands.
Okay, so I have a motion then to approve the conditional use permit extended to the current applicant or the current owner. And you've got times established, a 12-hour window, 9 to 9, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. feeding. Is that correct? Is that captured?
Yes, sir, Jim.
I have that as a motion. Is there a second to that? Any second?
I'll second for discussion.
I have a second. And the floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I feel like I'm a voice of negativity tonight, but I guess I share my concerns with it. When you look at the way these lots, now whether you agree or disagree that this subdivision was a proper division of property to begin with, it was, and there are lots of records now. But, I just, if you treat the whole property, all those lots as a subdivision, it gives me concern to have this type of activity folded inside the subdivision record, and without basically a petition for the majority of those that own that property around it, I just got concerned with it, for several reasons, but, therefore I can't support this conditional use.
Any other comment?
I agree. I think it's a wonderful business, and I'd really like to have one of those talks one day. However, it has to make sense, and this right here does not make sense among just the area and how it's designated and divided. With several homeowners, that's right there, it doesn't make sense to me.
And again, I'm in agreement with the last two. I'd already made my decision based on the vote taken by the board, so I'm in agreement with that.
Any additional comments or questions?
I can't talk anyways.
Okay, I will say a few things. I understand what Commissioner Dawson was saying, and the others, I do understand, I see their point. But it is A2 right now, and I understand it may be non-conforming, but you can do ag on 5 acres. I was told when we were looking at chicken eggs that you can grow strawberries. You can do several things, there's all kinds of things you can do. They're over there, the feed mill, is near there, and it's, I just feel like they're kind of in a good spot over there. They're using probably twice as much land, half as many dogs, actually less than half a dog, or more than half a dog. Right now where the kennels would be, it looks like they're gonna be about 400 foot from the closest resident. That's more than a chicken house has to be. If they can, and I do believe they'll stick to these conditions. If they do that, then I think the noise could be taken care of. They're regulated by the state. There are existing businesses of decades here in Madison County that seem to also pay their taxes and do what they're supposed to do. And so I would like to see them give them a chance to do it. Like I said, I understand all the points, but I definitely think that this is a place that it could go, and they could really be good neighbors. And whenever the other folks get down here, or up here from Florida, I should say, I understand their point too, but I just feel like they've taken all the concerns into account and have looked after that. But those are just my statements.
Anybody else? On the floor is a motion to approve the conditional use permit for a dog kennel on these two parcels, currently zoned A2, with the conditions that it extend to the current property owner only, and that hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. would be observed for feeding. I have a motion, I have a second to approve that. The vote is to Commissioner Kirk.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
All right, Mr. Ayers, that was voted 4-1 to deny that, application, sir. All right. Chairman Houston, number 5, please.
The rezone request is Victor Johnson representing Mansfield LLC. The request is to have a 40.44 acre parcel rezoned from A2 to A1 with 6 poultry houses and 1 stack house. Property is located on map 2, parcel 11, on Loop Road in District 1. The vote of the Planning and Zoning Commission was a vote of 4-3 to recommend approval of the rezone request with conditions that the current 500-foot buffer on the east of this property remain. There could be no more than 6 poultry houses and 1 stack house. And that the houses be built in a east-west orientation. You got both 4-3? Yeah. Oh, that's it.
Okay, sir, thank you. All right, Mr. Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One note on the east-west direction of the poultry houses, that means they would have to vent towards the east, which is into the, if you look on the attachment to rezoning that I filed last month, there's a hill or 2 hills to the east with that wooded area. You can also see the 500-foot wooded area on the color area tax map that's attached, and on the Google map that shows the 12 poultry houses to the west. The reason, and this is just a color coded version of the tax map that is in your zoning application, showing that the area is predominantly agricultural. 75% of the lots in this zone are A1 or A2, 53.8 are A1, 23.1 are A2, and then there are 23% are R. The reason you're here on this rezone is this property has not been usable since zoning was adopted. There was a cutting of timber about 20 years ago. This is a 40-acre parcel that is immediately east of 80 acres containing 12 poultry houses. Now, those 80 acres were originally 40 and 37, or 44 and 37, they didn't combine into an 81-acre tract, to be precise. Because of those poultry houses, the only feasible and economic use of this property is the poultry. There's been no interest in anyone purchasing the property for farming or for residential development. In 2008, the 3 Minish sisters inherited the property from their father, Dr. Albert Minish. They've since formed Minish Girls LLC to own the property. It took nearly 2 years to negotiate a contract to sell this 40-acre tract to the farmer to the west, which is Miss Lua Vu. Miss Vu and her son Duke Pham, who manages their farm, moved out here from Macon. They've been in the poultry business for 20 years, and they would like to put 6 poultry houses on this parcel. As mediation or remediation against, or mitigation against the impact of having 6 poultry houses, Mr. Pham said that they do not plan to cut more than 500 feet buffer from the eastern boundary. The zoning ordinance has a 300-foot buffer from the boundary line. This property would be combined with the 80 acres to the west to make a single 120-acre parcel. The proposed poultry houses would not be entirely owned this 40.44 acres. They would be partially owned to the property to the west, already owned by Ms. Booth. The attachment to rezoning that I have filed does point out the reasons in support of this rezone, the 500-foot buffer, and venting those houses facing east-west towards the east into that buffer would mitigate the odors that are inherent in poultry property development. The existing poultry houses are 450 feet west of the existing boundary on this property, and the proposed use is the only economic use of this property that the Minish Girls could have. The property has been on the market for several years. Some of the things that the commissioners, in considering a zoning amendment request must look to is existing uses and zoning of the nearby property. This is predominantly zoned agricultural. It is agricultural mixed-use residential. Also look to the relative gains to the public as compared to a hardship on the property owner if you turn down the rezone. Property owners has immense hardship because all they're doing is paying $460 a year in taxes. They can't get any economic use out of the property, and there's no reason to keep the property if they can't benefit from it. The length of time the property has been vacant is zoned. There's another factor the commission must consider, and the property has been vacant as zoned since zoning was passed in 1994. Also, you look to conformity with, or divergence from, land use plan and established land use patterns. Your current or draft character areas map, current use map, in Madison County shows this area as industrial because it's along Highway 98. But immediately north, all of the property is agricultural and low-density residential. The future land use map shows this character area as highway corridor, which does allow agricultural use. And interestingly enough, in the highway corridor zone, it does not say residential, it says business, industry, agriculture. In terms of benefits to the county, the primary benefit, in addition to promoting agriculture, and Madison County was the #1 poultry producer for table layers and broilers in 2017. They've been a leading factor, a leading county in poultry for years. This is cited in my attachment, comes from the Georgia Farm Gate Value Report of the University of Georgia Agribusiness and Economic Development Center in 2017. The property currently pays about $425 to $448 in taxes. That was from 2017 to 2019. Property to the west, which is now combined into an 81-acre parcel, was paying $3,456 in taxes before the poultry houses were built, is now paying $25,368 in taxes since the houses were built in 2017. There will be a benefit to the county in that poultry houses will generate a great deal more tax revenue, and poultry farms don't require a lot of police and fire services. So this is in keeping with your current land use map of the land use in the area. We had conditions imposed by the vote from the planning commission, which would reduce impacts of a poultry farm. And I'll reserve my time to answer questions or respond to comments from the public.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody here tonight that would speak in opposition to this? Please.
My name is Donna Wood. I live next door, 10665 Highway 98. And I'm directly across from the Loop Road, so I have an issue with the Loop Road thing as well. And I understand that the poultry business is good for the county, but what about the good for the neighbors? That's the deal here. And I live next to Duke's, 4 on this side. That's on the southwest side, I believe. Yes. I have 12 on the north side. Now this is gonna be putting 6 more on my northeast side. And I understand that there's supposed to be some regulations with each of the chicken houses or companies or whatever, say Tyson or whatever. They're supposed to regulate the smells. But for some reason, these I smell on a constant basis. I live on top of the hill there and I catch them all. And it's like, it's made it worse, say, for my vehicles, my everything has got this dust. I want to call it, I don't know if it's coming from the fans or what, out of these chicken houses. But something's not right. I don't know what it is, but it needs to be investigated before we move forward on something like this. And I understand, I'm new to this A2, A1 business, but I understand that A1 gives them a free-for-all, basically, to do anything they want. And I understand he's representing the minstrels, but this is gonna be transferred, my understanding, to Duke. This is my understanding. And he had told us last year that he was not gonna be adding any more to the Madison County, that he had permission to add them to the Jackson County side already. but he wouldn't be adding them to the Madison County side. And, the loop road directly across, we're at the hill there, and I have trouble coming out now because of the hill. There's transfer trucks, everything else come flying over that hill. And even as you enter my driveway, I nearly get collided from the rear end from the same thing. Well, these trucks coming out of this loop road that they're talking about here, it's gonna make it worse, and we're gonna have car accidents right there. So unless they're made, if this goes for approval, I say they need to use the other end of that loop road, not the one where the hill is, but the straightaway. So, I believe that hit all the points that I need to make at this point.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else here tonight that'd like to speak?
Address 10615 Highway 98 West. Our property is like hers, it's across the road from these chicken houses, and the smell is terrible. And I know Madison County wants to be the chicken capital of the world, but I think we got enough chicken houses. But, it's just unbearable for us, especially in 90-degree heat. These chicken houses, you can't even get out in the yard. It's terrible. And our property values probably has gone down less than half what we could sell 10 years ago or 5 years ago before these chicken houses were built. I know it's gone down at least half, because we can't sell it now. Nobody wants to live next to chicken houses. And like she said, as far as the property, the traffic, the loop road's gonna be tore up all the time with trucks coming in and out of that road. And right there at the hill, where that road comes out of, like she said, is a hill coming from over 98. And people even pass on both sides of the road, right there at that road, somebody's gonna get killed. And it's just a terrible place. We already got 12 chicken houses there already, so that'd be like putting gas on a fire if you put more out there. And I hope you voted this. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay, anybody else like to speak? This is currently in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, procedural question.
Yes.
I don't know if you asked for support after I stopped speaking. I believe you may have gone right into opposition.
I did, and I think if I look back at it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can offer the petitioner or a representative of the petitioner. I don't know that, when I first started, we did actually open the floor for anybody that would speak in support of. I don't think there's a requirement, I think we're gonna wait.
Well, actually, we are supposed to, if there's
Pardon
any,
me?
if
Okay.
there's any other speakers on the for side as well.
Okay, well, then what I'll do is we'll come back to, is there anybody else here then that would like to speak in opposition? Let me close that portion out first. Okay. No? Okay, then what I'm gonna do is, are you coming up?
Oh.
Is this an opposition?
Yes.
Okay,
Even though I don't live in the area, but I do live near, an area that has chicken houses, and, I feel that, does have a smell that is, sometimes you can't even go outside your door. And, I know that Madison County, as they say, is, a lot of chicken houses in the area that put their profits from, but, you have to think about the people that are living in Madison County that are not farmers of chicken, who have chicken houses, that they also would like to enjoy the area.
all right. Last call. Anybody want to speak in opposition?
Chairman, board question. I realize that, that property is zoned A1. A1 kind of gives you an opportunity to put whatever, whenever. But I'm concerned about the, commercial type chicken business where we seem to be forgetting about the people that live in the area. The people that have to endure the smell, endure the truck traffic, endure all that comes with it. I do understand that because it's A1, it's agricultural, I do understand that Madison County is a #1 chicken producing in the state. I do understand the position of the Minish Girls LLC, having that piece of property that they can't do anything with. But yet, I still believe that with the number of residential houses and residential people that are living in that area, that we already have 12 there, I don't think it's appropriate to put that many more houses in that particular area.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we're gonna go back and open the floor up, and it was not my intent to leave out anybody, so I'll ask if there's anybody that would speak in support of it at this point. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm trying to be brief. And I wish we didn't have to wrangle over this. As I make my comments, I want everyone to understand, we are being, want to be compassionate about everybody that's involved. There's issues on both sides, obviously. A couple things I would like to point out. In addition to the fact there are additional A1 properties that the area is predominantly A1, also is an existing poultry area. The Minish Farm, part of the Minish Farm has been in poultry operations. I believe there were 6 houses. I think one burned down, maybe only 5 now, in operation, probably close to 30 years, directly across Highway 98 for the property that we're talking about. And if you expand that circle just a little bit, there are more in the area. So it's not new to this area. And if you look at the A1 character of the area, then in my mind is appropriate. And just another thought, oh, by the way, if we prevent the LLC from selling this property to the adjacent property owner as an addition to this farm, all they would need to do is move to one of the existing A1 areas, and it would be, assuming they meet the setbacks, and it would be allowed anyway. So the opportunity exists. Really what we're looking at is just do you handcuff or do you prohibit Minish Girls LLC the opportunity to sell this farm to the adjacent property owner, or that's really, to me, the only question and comment. As we've heard these, and by the way, I'm speaking on behalf of me, not from the planning commission. This is me. As we heard comments, a couple things sort of stuck in my mind. Yes, poultry is important to Madison County, and it's not something that just happened in the last couple of years. As we saw this recent expansion in the industry, there's a lot of concern, and I share some of those concerns. But there are some realities that go with it, and the more you get, the more confined animals, doesn't matter the species, including humans, the more animals you put in a tight space, you're just gonna have those problems with them. That's reality, and I don't really approve of that. However, the ranking that Madison County currently has in its approach in poultry to the county, to the state, and in the nation is something that's existed for decades. At some point, I would like to think that there is an understanding that if you move into, or if you choose to reside in rural areas in Madison County, then you gotta sort of suspect that you might have chickens as neighbors. And that's just somebody who is not producing, being understanding of somebody who is interested in being in the poultry industry. At the same time, those of us who are involved in the industry need to be consciously concerned about those who want rural life but prefer not to have the negatives that go along with animal production. And that they are real, and there's no question there are specific weather circumstances that make them worse. Hot weather, high humidity, Georgia, summertime. But don't confine that to poultry. Drive around the south perimeter, hot weather, high humidity. It's not just confined to poultry. And that's a reality of the weather circumstances and confined livestock of any kind that you're dealing with. So I just ask you to keep that in mind. But a plea that I would issue to you, I think it's really unfair to our public in general that we have to continue to face this. I think we as a group of leaders ought to realistically define an area in Madison County where if you choose to live in this area, then just understand that you may well be in close proximity with poultry production. If you choose to live in this area, then we're gonna help you know that is not gonna be the case. And I think we're past the point of needing to do that, and I urge the leadership of this group to maybe help us get that. And if you're interested in my opinion, I'm sure I am. Thank y'all very much for what you do.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Anybody else in support of?
I know you did it backwards. I have a rebuttal to something he said.
Well,
And see, it would have fallen into my part if we had done it the other way around.
from right there, can you be as brief
Yes,
as you can,
yes.
since I messed the order
Yes, it's
of it
just
up?
the
I
one-
appreciate that. I probably, we might have introduced something, but.
It's one thing.
What's that?
And he was talking about people moving into an area that already had poultry in place. Well, our area never had poultry in place 45 years ago. And that's when we moved to the area. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, all right, noted. Okay.
I wanted to speak in support.
In support, right, I'm sorry, Ms. Smith, it's not finished anymore. It's,
What order we were in now?
no, we're definitely, I messed that up a little bit, and she's correct. Sometimes when we get it out of order, there's I'd rather correct it right now, make us all feel better about it, saying it.
Well, my name is Elizabeth Minish Cunningham, and I'm part of the Minish Girls LLC. And the one thing that I wanted to reiterate is the buffer. There's what, a 300-foot mandatory buffer in Madison County between
Setback,
residential
yes, ma'am.
setbacks. Okay. And the poultry farm owner is agreeing to almost double that, to 500-foot buffer. And also keep the existing trees that are there. He's going to try to do all that he can to, reduce any smell or anything, but it's just a fact of life. You don't really have to live next to a chicken house to smell chicken houses. And he's trying to put them in the most opportune place that he can to be a good neighbor. And there are other neighbors that are, also involved on the Jackson County side. The golf course there and all the houses in the golf course area, and like I said, he's trying to be a good neighbor and a good steward of the land. So, I just hope that you'll please. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak, Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask that the three people who didn't identify themselves just state their names?
We have,
You all know Canelo Scott and Cynthia Fortune because they're on the planning and zoning.
right, we have Ms. Ogle, is that right? And I'm missing it, Ms. Donna Wood, and,
The woman who spoke last.
Ms. Donna Wood.
Thank you. I don't know whether you recognize the faces when I'm sitting behind people, so. So this rezone is sort of about the clash between what is Madison County. Are we an agricultural county? Is that what we want to support and promote? Our land use plan says that property north of Highway 98 is designated to be agricultural preservation, is what it says on the future land use map. And south of Highway 98 is residential with some agricultural. A couple of points that were made. Now, I didn't look at property values on the other side of Highway 98. I did look at the property values on the houses to the east, because that was the main issue before planning and zoning. And since those 12 poultry houses were built in 2017, and this is not supposed to be a comment on anything, I'm just observing that the property tax value on all the houses to the east went up from 2017 to 2018 to 2019. The point about this undisturbed 500-foot buffer is important because it's not a 300-foot setback where you can take everything out, grade the land except for a required vegetative buffer and berm, which is a requirement in your zoning ordinance to help reduce the impact of poultry houses. It's a 500-foot wooded buffer with hills to the east. The contour lines on the site plan is attached to the constitutional attachment or 20-foot contour lines. So towards the east, there will be the hill and wooded area. And these houses are proposed to face east-west so that the fans would have to be blowing to the east into the wooded area. The 12 houses to the west were built according to county regulations, but the property was already zoned A1. And so they're accessed from the west, and all of those 12 houses are blowing their fans to the east, which goes down into a ravine between these two pieces of property. As to the truck traffic, these are planned to be broiler houses, which the truck traffic is about every 6 weeks when broilers are cleaned out. That's done at night. My wife and I live next to 2 poultry houses with 4 more across the way. Those were there when we moved here to Madison County. Our house was originally about 400 feet from and downhill from the poultry house. The wooded buffer does provide some assistance in reducing the smell from poultry. The key issues here are what is the impact on the current landowner diminishes if the rezone is denied. If you look at your current zoning map, which I gave you the color-coded version just because it shows that 50 of the 65 parcels, not counting the single business parcel, 50 of the 65 parcels are agricultural, and 35 or 53.8% are A1. This is a predominantly agricultural area under the land use plan and under current zoning maps. It's shown as highway corridor, but immediately north of highway corridor on the future land use is agricultural preservation. And south of Highway 98 is rural residential, which does allow agriculture. So the county, and this was discussed in 2017, I believe, when you were amending the land use plan, and it was discussed when the land use map was moved into 2007 to have the higher use farm and agricultural north of the Highway 98 corridor, which this is. As Mr. Chandler pointed out, there are poultry houses in the area. The other Minish farms to the south, 6 houses, have been there for 30 years. The real issue here is if the zoning is not allowed with the conditions to reduce the impacts, it's the taking of the Minish's property because they have no use for that property. No one will buy it and use it. It can't be used for a residential subdivision when it's that close to the 12 poultry houses, because on those 12 poultry houses, that property was denuded. And the houses were built. There's not vegetation. There is vegetation to the east on this property, and Mr. Pham has told me that they plan to remove as little of the vegetation as required to put in the road and the access, which would be east of the creek. And it would be off of Wood Road because that's the only way to access this property. I do note in the attachment for rezoning that I filed November 4th before this body. The county has an obligation to work with property owners to allow the highest and best use of their property. That's within regulations. And they have regulations better than they were 4 years ago for poultry farming and poultry houses. And the state has regulations for erosion control when poultry farms were being built, and those weren't in place 12 years ago. Or they were in place, they were not enforced. But most importantly is that generalized fear about negative impacts of rezoning are insufficient grounds to deny rezoning. In Ray v. City of Cordele, the court noted that a generalized fear of area residents that they would suffer a decline in value of their property and an increase in traffic and crime, which is an issue here, doesn't support denying the rezoning. I believe when you look at the zoning administrator's evaluation and when you look at your zoning amendment criteria in section 1439 of your zoning ordinance, the balance has to come down in favor of allowing this rezone with the conditions that the planning commission submitted. We spent just over an hour in the public hearing for the planning commission November 19th. A big deal of that was discussing impacts of poultry houses and how do you reduce those impacts. So our concern is that agricultural use is what the county zoning says it should be in this area. It's predominantly one of those two. There's no use of the property. It took over 2 years to get a contract from the farmer to the west to be used to supplement their existing poultry farm. And part of the proposed houses would be on the property to the west. All 6 houses would not fit on this 40-acre parcel with the 500-foot wooded buffer that's proposed in the site plan attached to the constitutional challenge and amendment to the rezone application. If you look at the tax map that's attached to the application for rezoning attachment, the color tax map shows pretty clearly where that buffer is because the dark area with the small farm road running north is where the buffer starts and it runs east of there. So the entire eastern part of that part of the land would not be in poultry houses, and the houses are going to be about 800 to 1,000 feet back from Loop Road because they're going to be in the northern part of this property. If there are questions, I don't know if Mr. Pham came tonight. He came to the zoning hearing. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I urge you to approve this rezone because to deny it would remove any viable use of this property from the municipals because it's just not economically viable to have an A2 property that close to poultry houses without expecting it to become poultry farm.
Chairman, I have some questions. Council, where is he planning on putting the drive if this is approved?
Could be on the west. If you look at the site plan, again, it's a little hard to see. Phil Monroe prepared this as just a proposed site plan, I think 2 years ago, when they were first negotiating the contract. Yes, there is a contract to sell this property to Live on Loop, and that contract depends on it being done day one, because it can't be used if it's not. So the road would be off of Loop Road. Now, there's a part of Loop Road that isn't shown on this old aerial, but it's the southern boundary of the property. And then there's a dotted blue, that's the creek and the ravine running south. So the road would be to the right or east of the ravine. It would probably come in around the 840-foot contour line, which is right next to where the footage 1020, 1,020 feet is written on the.
So it's coming out of Loop Road?
It will have to come out of Loop Road because the property only has road access.
When he built those other 12 chicken houses over there, that was already zoned A1, correct?
It was already zoned.
So he didn't have to come in front of us, he just built.
We just had to meet the building requirements and the state erosion requirements.
Right now, if they do situate those east to west, are those fans gonna be facing each other? So they'll be blowing at each other, the fans?
No, the fans on this parcel will have to face to the east. Because if you look at the lay of the land, to the east, there's 2 knobs or 2 knolls or hills, and this is the wooded area with those hills. And the contour lines running north-south are fairly parallel where these houses are shown. Now, they're shown running north-south. But, these are 600-foot long houses, and the 6 houses as spaced are 600 feet wide.
Can-
6 houses, 600
Can
feet
you
long.
fit them in the conditions that the planning zoning passed in?
Yes, they will not all fit on the 40 acres. It'll be partly on the, and that's what's shown on this site plan. Partly they'll be on the 80 acres to the west. They will fit in the same footprint as this site plan shows with them running north-south, it just won't run east-west.
Okay.
And, because it's cut into the hill to make the level pad for the houses, the fans would have to blow westward up into the hill,
Gotcha.
or towards the hill in the wooded area.
Is he's just looking to expand?
Yes, he doesn't know if he's gonna do it right away. He did say they do plan to build, up to 6 poultry houses. They also have a stack house that is permitted but not sited yet, and it might go east of the ravine instead of west of the ravine. I don't know if it will go on this property or not. If it did, it would probably have to go towards Loop Road to the south. Because the stack house is not a difference unless you're standing right next to it. As opposed to poultry houses with blower fans.
So it's gonna blow east on these 20-some lots to the east.
No, it's gonna blow east into the 500-foot vegetative area.
Any other question?
When was the A2 designation given to that property?
I would have to guess it was in 1994 when zoning was adopted. I'm not aware of it ever being rezoned otherwise.
Was there any consideration in the discussion to possibly increase the buffer area along the north and south boundary lines, or add additional plans to create some sort of buffer within the 300-foot setback area?
I think if you look on the site plan, the 300-foot buffer is shown. And there's not a lot of room to the north to increase that buffer.
No, I'm talking about increasing the buffer. There's a setback that's 300 foot.
Yes.
I'm talking about inside, within that 300-foot setback. Was there any discussion about maybe requiring some forestation there, if there's any, or preserving any tree canopy in that area?
But Mr. Pham has said he does not plan to grade beyond what is required for the pads. So if you look at the 6 houses to the west on the site plan, that's about where the 6 houses will be when they're rotated 90 degrees to the west. Because they're about as far north as they can fit within that buffer and about as far south. And it's possible he may build fewer houses, but I believe the 6 houses is the number that it would take for the farm to work best.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, the ordinance requires a planted buffer.
There's a planted buffer and there's a berm at the fan end.
And I'm talking about just for any poultry house, anywhere now, new construction.
Yeah.
The ordinance requires a setback and it also has a planted buffer requirement, vegetative buffer.
So there's a vegetated, there'll be a vegetated buffer along the north and south property lines.
Anytime there's new construction, it has to comply with the ordinance, yes.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, sir. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Unless there's somebody else that would like to speak in favor, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion. And we'll open up the business meeting to consider the request for the 40.44 acre parcel to be rezoned from A2 to A1. We have conditions of a 500-foot buffer, 6 poultry houses only, 1 stack house, and houses to be constructed in an east-west orientation. Did I capture that right? Is that right? Okay. So, entertain a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny the request.
I have a motion to deny.
If I can say.
Second.
I have a second.
All right, now we can discuss, right?
Yeah. Please.
Well, you know, I would have to agree with at least one thing Mr. Chandler said, and that would be that I think there's too many in this specific area. You know, 12, you know, when we were going over zoning regs for the new regulations for the chicken houses, you know, we talked about it, we heard from people, and every single one of them about said what Mr. Chandler said about, you know, we don't want that many in one place, and they don't do that, you know, and that kind of stuff is very rare, and so it just seems like that's where we're going with this. And so that's my first objection to it, is I don't like that there's so many in one spot. Another thing that we were told is, when they built the original 12 chicken houses, they were gonna come out in 98. Those corridors, when we made those highway corridors, the whole point of that, I thought, was that we would have these type of industry, this type of business coming out onto 98, a state road, that we would not have to put our tax dollars into helping. And it seems to me that these are already coming out on Loop Road, and the new ones will be coming out on Loop Road. I know gravel is a pretty high price, because when I'm trying to get gravel on dirt roads these days, it is pulling teeth to get that done. We are stretched thin. And so that's another one of my concerns, is the drive being on Loop Road and the traffic coming out. There are already, you know, problems there, coming over that hill, putting more traffic in that spot is just gonna make the problem worse, in my opinion. I think that they were gonna try to get them to put if they were gonna come out on 98, they would have to put a turning signal. That's too much money, they said, I believe, is what it was when it happened. And you know, $10,000 in profit on a chicken house, per chicken house, 120,000, 160,000, or 180,000 when they put 6 more in there. I figured that, you know, they might have enough money maybe to do something like that or work something out, but they chose to come out on Loop Road again. Like I said, that's the cost. I understand he talks about tax revenue coming in, and, you know, but how much do we spend on gravel and fixing that dirt road coming in? That's always something I have to think about. In my job sitting in this seat, I do have to look at you know, the county. I was elected by District 1, and if we look at around there, the citizens that live adjacent to this property, it's kind of like the dogs earlier. You know, it almost looks like a subdivision sitting next to it, like Mr. Dawson said on that one. You know, you got a 3.75 acre, 3.9, 3.2. You got 2 down here that you got one that's 0.95. You know, that are all right here. You know, 2 acre adjacent, 3 acre adjacent, 3 acre adjacent. You know, I just feel like, you know, it's just a lot on those adjacent property members that are living there. And so that's another one of my concerns. You know, putting another 150,000 or more, I guess 25,000 to 35,000 chickens in a house, you know, per house. That's a lot of chickens. That's a lot of smell. There's a lot to endure for one person. And you know, it was also discussed that, you know, people moving in, and I do hate we still have to have a discussion. I wish we could just have a discussion each time we have it, make a decision and move on, like we've been doing. But, you know, the Tuckers, they've been there for 47 years. A lot of other people down there been there a long time before chicken houses came in. So, you know, we ask all the time who's came first, chicken or the egg. Well, maybe some of these people came before the chicken or the egg in this instance. And so, you know, my opinion is no, we need to deny this rezone, and hopefully we can start to figure out some of the impacts that these are having on our county. You know, we have right around 700 chicken houses, I believe, already in the county. And so I really, like I said, I don't think that there's been enough consideration, and so I'm not in support of this rezone.
Any other comment or discussion? Okay.
I'm sorry, I was late to the mic. I appreciate the comments. I have a hard time finding another appropriate designated place to put the houses if it's not next door to an existing one. I do am compassionate, don't get me wrong, but the neighbors are there. I think the 500-foot buffer, goes a long way. The orientation, is my understanding, the west to east, we'll have to cut that hill down, flatten it out to make that pad. I mean, it's appropriate. I think with Mr. Chandler's, comment about by zoning right or code right, that, some additional plantings will have to go in to help muffle skies. I know it won't hide everything. I think it does seem to be appropriate for these 6 houses and the one stack house. I guess my clarity of the 500-foot buffer is to make sure that it is truly an undisturbed natural buffer to protect those trees, and it's not just interpreted at a later time that if this moves forward, that the intent is to leave that as a vegetated buffer. I want to make sure that's clear, that if the motion fails and it moves forward in a different manner, that the intent would be to leave it as an undisturbed natural buffer.
Anything else? All right. Motion on the floor is to deny the application as presented. Motion in a second, rather. And with that, the vote will go to Commissioner Doster.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Okay, so that motion failed 3-2. Is there a desire to make another motion on this request?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve the planning and zoning recommendation with the stipulations, with clarity that the buffer is a undisturbed natural buffer.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve with the conditions of a 500-foot undisturbed vegetated buffer. 6 houses only, 6 poultry houses only, 1 stack house in east-west orientation. Any comments or discussion on that?
You know, the reason I meant Madison, I'm thinking about the generations that have lived here, the Madison County residents that were here before. And we've discussed this property before, I'm gonna change my mind on it. And, yeah, that's who I have in mind here. Where it's situated, does it make sense? East, west, whatever, you all can say what you want. But I've been by there, I've smelled it. Granted, it's the way of doing business, but I'm considering the 20, these 25 different sets of folks to the east.
Chairman, for me, just one more comment.
Okay.
Yeah, just know if this passes, which I believe it will, looks like some people may want the first thing you ride into Madison County to be chicken house smell. Some people might want that, and they won't get it on this one. And so, it's just which way we're gonna go forward, and I believe we're kind of seeing which way, and things might not ever change. They might change, and maybe the majority wants it, maybe the majority don't want it. But like I said, first thing we smell will come into Madison County from that way. It's going to be even more chicken house, and so the decision is being made for us. So I'm done.
Let me just say one thing. Madison County is an agricultural county. It's not going to change. I agree with Mr. Chandler here that we probably can do some things better. But I also understand that we have people, I grew up, I've lived here all my life. Okay? Grew up on a farm. And chicken houses and poultry farming has been part of my life since I was, 5 or 6 years old. So, it's not gonna change. I'm sympathetic to the fact that there's a lot of poultry farms that are a lot larger than they used to be. And, it used to be family farms of, you had 4, 5, 6 chicken houses at most. And that was good. But the reason my family doesn't grow chickens right now is because we can't afford to grow chickens with what the houses we have, because there's a whole lot of requirements now that we didn't have that are required now. Madison County is gonna have, we've got people moving in that are building chicken houses. We've also got a lot of folks in Madison County that have lived here for years that have been poultry farmers, that are gonna continue to be poultry farmers and wanna be poultry farmers, and they wanna expand. And so we gotta think about those folks too. And so my decision here goes back to this use of this property. If we do not, allow this, then what are we gonna do with it? What's gonna happen? There's already poultry farms there. Has been stated, there is some regulations that need to be followed. I'm sure they will be followed. But, as I told a person, and I don't want anybody to take this wrongly, but as I told another person that moved in from Gwinnett County over into a district close to me, they were complaining about where they were at and the smell and all those kind of things. And I said, well, did you check out where you were purchasing and what you were doing when you moved in there? And they said, well, we spent a little time. I said, well, you should have spent more time. Maybe there's other places that you would feel more comfortable. And I'm sympathetic to it that, you lived there, maybe there weren't any chicken houses. That was 47 years ago. I'm sympathetic to that fact. But these chicken houses have moved in here, so, it's one of those things we should expect that there's more gonna come as long as we have these agricultural areas. Now, maybe we can change something in the future and have some different areas out there where we can designate, like Terry said, Mr. Chandler said, and maybe we can do that, have some areas, but we don't have it right now. So I think this is the best option for this.
I promised my wife I wouldn't speak tonight. She's a speech therapist, and she told me I was gonna ruin my voice. But, we'll get in trouble. I'm always an advocate for agriculture, and we talked about drawing a line somewhere, but we did. Just like we've said, we drew that line down Highway 98, and everything north was to be undisputed in the case of agriculture. Unless it was against something that didn't fall into that category. And I'm sympathetic to majority landowners here, the Minish family, been in your family for at least 3 generations, and I think your granddaddy was one of the first integrators around here as far as poultry goes. Big in the agricultural industry, so that's always been a high intensity farm area, or it was years and years ago when Mr. P.T. was alive. So, but, anyway, I will be for this.
Can I say something about that? What did you say?
Well, hang on, actually, we're gonna take a vote. We closed the public portion, and I actually need to close out the business side of this. I'm not trying to cut you out. We could probably go back and forth the rest of this evening, or some people could go back and forth. I've got a motion on the table, unless there's any further discussion by the commissioners here. motion and a second to approve the request with the conditions. 500-foot undisturbed vegetative buffer, 6 houses only with one stack house and an east-west orientation. The vote is to Commissioner Allen.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
I believe the recommendation from is for the house to sit west to east, and I'm not trying to make light of it.
No, okay, with the fan spinning, okay,
I'll be
understand, okay. I just took it to be a nominal or a cardinal direction.
I understand, I think it does matter.
Okay, so stand corrected west to east, all right? And the vote is to Commissioner Allen.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a 3-2 to approve with those conditions. And I appreciate everybody's interest and their concern in this, I really do. And I know it's sometimes a contentious issue, but again, maybe we need to do a little bit more work on our ordinances and our provisions in our county. So, all right, we're going to move on to the rest of our agenda here tonight. If anybody would like to take this opportunity, though, to stretch their legs, I'd certainly understand.
I just want to let it be known, we don't oppose agriculture. We've had cows for a long, long time. It's just poultry. That is our big thing, poultry.
I got that from your earlier comment too, so
Yeah, we've had cows ever since we've been here.
What is the buffer between north and south?
The vegetative buffer they spoke of, the 500-foot, was to the east of those houses.
We're south. We're south, so what is that?
So they have to have, for new construction, as was pointed out, they must have a vegetative, they have to have some sort of a buffer for all new construction. So there's gonna be, a vegetative buffer, they're gonna have something physically between the house and the property line.
But
Even to the north and south, yes ma'am.
is it gonna be 300, 500 feet?
Our ordinance says 300 feet on that. The 500 was a condition that was actually suggested and approved. Okay. So we have, we have 9.
That's right, it's community, that's what it's all about.
We have 9 items left on our agenda. I'll open the floor for anybody that'd like to speak on any one of those 9.
Mr. Chairman, my statement and remarks deal with item number 5 on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
The reappointment of Noah Scott to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We also have another member of the Planning and Zoning Board, Terry Shannon, who represents District 2, that's term in the end of this year, 31st of December.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was an error and you being left out or what, but I would like to say as Planning and Zoning Chairman, both of these individuals have been a great amount of a wealth of information when it comes to our planning and zoning meetings, their business dealings here in the county and otherwise. And I definitely support both their reappointments to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
I didn't hear you. I thought one was going and one was leaving, or both. I didn't understand. That was good. I'm sorry.
They're both scheduled, both of their terms are up at the end of this year.
Okay.
But you're recommending both of them?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
One is District 2, which is Chairman Strickland, and the other one is the Board of Commissioners Chairman, Dick Knowles.
Both are willing to serve another term.
I hadn't discussed it with
Oh,
Commissioner Strickland yet.
that's it, I may have stepped out on.
Sounds like it's really for District 2.
Would you,
I just nominated you more.
would you require the additional time? We'll see if the board will amend it. Truly an omission. Didn't catch
Sure,
that.
probably didn't want me to. We hadn't talked about it.
Are we voting on this tonight?
This is for discussion, that's why I wanted to make sure that we'll make sure we will be voting on the 16th. This is a discussion
We'll
item.
talk about it from then.
Okay, and we will amend that, and make sure that when that, goes out, we'll include you on that, as well, so. And I appreciate anybody's willingness. My recommendation, to the board is going to be from, the at-large position that we reappoint Canola Scott. I've already spoken with him, and he's willing to serve, so I wanted to throw that out there, but there'll be an opportunity between now and then, if anybody's got anything, wants to talk with the commissioners or share whatever. So,
Are you still open?
I know now.
yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I got a couple of, items, and first, I want to say to Commissioner Goodwin, I understand and appreciate, this is not according to this, but I appreciate your concern, and I appreciate the poultry farms and everything, and I'm not a long-time resident, I'm a new resident. I come from the city, and my husband brought me to the country, and I respect the poultry farms and everything that, Madison County gives to me, but, you know, I hope that Madison County, you said that it will never change, but hopefully Madison County will consider everyone, and new kinds of industries can come in, and I live in the city of Culver, but there's a chicken farm not too far down, and that smell, I'm telling you, and everybody wants to be able to enjoy it. I know you're probably used to the smell.
Ms. Fortune, I'm gonna,
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna get you to stick with 5 through 14 if I could. And I only say that because a lot of times,
I know.
we have that as a placeholder on that, so.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
Okay, first I want to also support item number 5, but, I want to bring forth, and I don't know if this falls under 15 and 16, the road update, and probably, Commissioner Elman can better help me with this, but I want to just bring forward a concern with a road. 2 people lost their lives this past week.
Right.
72 and, the Morris. Hardman Morris Road.
Right.
And I don't know if the DOT will be a part of this too, but if we can somehow consider some way of making that intersection a safer intersection. Commissioners can look into that.
We will. It is a state highway, but, and they're aware, a number of years ago, and I don't want to stray too far, but I'll answer your question. They were looking to bring a grocery chain in to this area, and one of the, contingent items was trying to put some sort of a traffic light out there.
Good.
DOT said no. The business isn't there at that intersection, so I just want you to be aware that that has been looked at, and it's been looked at recently. They track statistics and everything, and we certainly do talk with them about that, though. We will ask them for, consideration, and perhaps an off-system safety plan or something like that. So we will ask them.
People also died this past week.
Right. I got you. Thank you. Anybody, I've got our tax commissioner, Mr. Dalton, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here in favor or discussion on line item 13, line item 14 was the additional amendments we made, right? Okay. I have the distinction of being somebody who worked in here for $8.14 an hour down the hall. So several years ago. Not long, that's right. But what I'm telling you is, people don't realize, people think if you work in this building right here that you're just robbing the county blind. We used to have a taxpayer who's no longer with us, used to write that on his bill every year. Misspell robbing too, okay? But anything you can do, we got a good group of people in just about every office across the board. I have 4
extremely knowledgeable ladies, and I got a part-time that's coming on real strong. If you look at the job descriptions that we turned in on and the work they perform in relation to other offices outside this particular sector right here, they're grossly underpaid for the work that they do. You know, especially my office, nobody walks in that door had it or wants to do anything but, you know, just have to give it up to the county. But, the courthouse offices, the county offices as a whole, are a lot of unsung men and women that, you know, a lot of it you don't see until something bad happens, when the weather's out at night, you know, stuff like that. But anything can be done for these people needs to be done, okay? As far as item 14, I have an employee in my office who, through her efforts and through her work, makes it to where I can get out and go knock on doors and go talk to people and collect tax money, delinquent money, and everything right here. She's the most knowledgeable person in my office, and probably in this courthouse when it comes to interacting with the board of commissioners, with the public, with the state. And as again, you know, what I turned in and everything, anything you can do to help her would be greatly appreciated. On the chicken house issue, if I hadn't grown up on a poultry farm in Jackson County, I'd probably be 5'8" instead of 6'1", right?
Did you roll in it?
I walked in it barefoot. Hey, look, and we sure are glad that this pays you, because we couldn't afford it. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. But no, I appreciate everything y'all do. And I know, I see more of the county than just about anybody in my office. And you'd be surprised at the people who react favorably and support you. You don't never hear about those people. It's always, you know, when an issue comes up and stuff like that. But I appreciate everything y'all do. And any consideration in this matter, I would greatly appreciate.
And I will, all joking aside, say that I do appreciate the tag office and what they've done, because that computer system that they had down there, I spent a little time down there watching them deal with that thing, and,
It's been just sort of a nightmare.
Yeah.
But the ladies are all well educated. I try to stay away from it, because I want folks to know I've done the tax commissioner is, but they do a fine job, they do.
We appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
good folks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Cross?
One more, I'm sorry.
That's
I know
all
it's a
right.
late night and I'll keep it really short.
Okay.
But I just want to echo Lamar Simmons on item number 13, the COLA. I think, as he said, a lot of great county employees that do an outstanding job for the county, and I think it's well deserved. But also number 14, I submitted with my budget request what I think is justification for, just speaking on my department and several of the ladies in there. Justification, they've received their certifications in several areas and have worked really hard. It wasn't an easy feat to accomplish, but I'm really proud of them and think that what little bit we're asking for, they're well deserved there. So just please keep that in mind. And I thank y'all. Y'all have some really tough decisions to make, not unlike what we do, but I commend y'all and thank y'all for what y'all do.
Yeah, and I, like I said too, I appreciate the women down there in the office, all of them. I went down there and spent a little bit of time with them, and they were very helpful to explain, so I know better what they do down there. So they were very good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Wait till you watch them in court.
Yeah.
You know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you're all welcome to it.
I know. Well, they sent me the court list.
Try to stay out of court these days, Coach.
I understand.
I couldn't make those dates, but I'm gonna try to do it next year.
Very good. Thank y'all.
Very good. Anybody else on these items? All right. I'm gonna set a land speed record, y'all. Almost be nice to do it through consent, but these are discussion items. I want to kind of highlight and emphasize that we're not taking action on any of these items tonight. It's an opportunity, though, to introduce these to the public for any comment or question or concern or any discussion they may want to have with your commissioners, time to do research on it, ask questions, whatever you choose to do with it. So, with that, item number 5, and, well, we will be asking the board on December 16th to reappoint 2 of our board members. And again, one's District 2 and one's an at-large appointment. And Terry Chandler's TBD, to be determined, I guess. Yeah, we'll wait to hear back between now and then I've got Mr. Noah Scott for the at-large position. And he started about the same time I did in this, so these are 3-year appointments, is that correct? I believe that's correct.
I was thinking there 4, but he and I are both filling in the unexpired, we're completing the unexpired term of our predecessor.
Well, there you go, that might explain it, so. See, I'm gonna get tired of being, of standing corrected tonight here, but no, you're probably right. It probably runs concurrent with our normal terms here, so I just know that, both of you started about the same time I did, and I hadn't been in it 3 years yet, so anyway, we'll, look forward to the 16th on that one. You each have a copy of the, again, I mentioned last time, it was kind of a series or rounds of budget amendments that we need to make, and again, this is for our auditor, and what I'll try to do is have a kind of a little bit more of a narrative for each one of these explaining what those are, but I wanted you to at least have the amounts that we would be looking at to amend. And many of these are unforeseeable, some of these are just a matter of doing business, but money needs to be accounted for in the right department, the right line item, so we'll ask for your the vote on that to amend our budget. Item number 8, discuss selecting a 2020 vice chairman. Commissioner Allen is our current chairman. If I understand him correctly, he is going to be with us at least 1 more year. And so we're looking to the commissioners to vote among yourselves for that vice chairman, and please talk with each other, find out who wants to serve, or if there's somebody who has a particular interest or some that may not have an interest. Certainly want to, we've actually called on our vice chairman a number of times this year to fill in and to perform some of the other duties, administrative duties. So it is important. We don't like to stop our wheels from turning at all. You also have a list of the proposed holidays for 2020. And after discussion and looking at those, we'll try to seal that. And this gets posted on our webpage as well. So please be prepared. If you've got any questions or suggestions on those, let me know, and I'll try to field an electronic discussion so that we're able to vote when we meet back on the 16th for that. Item number 10, we'll set the schedule for the 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting.
Chairman, I just have one thing about that.
Please.
27th, April 27th is
Right.
the conference. There'll be, the conference runs, through that weekend. Stop, the last day is on that Monday, 27th.
Right.
And so I just wanted to make sure, I didn't have it in front of me, and I apologize, but I just want to make sure April 27th wasn't on there. I
Right.
think April
No.
20th is
The 20th
Yeah,
is,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Now, and Rhonda actually scheduled around that one already. So.
Good. Doing my job too.
There we go.
Please do that.
Item number 11, and let me go back to 10 real briefly. We set the date, the time, and everything associated with those meetings. You have that for consideration. If you want to stick with the 6 o'clock time, that's fine. If you want to make a change to that, this would be the time to do that as well, okay? Item number 11, discuss 2020 new beer and wine license application, and you have a copy of that. It was actually put on the table here for us tonight. That's the only new one that we had. And the others are renewal license, and we'll ask you to, on item number 12, to be prepared to vote on the renewal of the 2020 beer and wine license application. When we met to discuss our budget, the board agreed at that time to set aside money for a cost of living, whether we actually stick with that act, the identifier cost of living, it may just be a 3%, pay adjustment, whatever. The notion is to try to bring everybody up. We've gone a year without an adjustment. The state has recommended that elected officials be considered for a 2%, but again, the Board of Commissioners had actually set aside enough to cover a 3% cost of living for full-time, regularly scheduled part-time employees. So, yeah.
I wonder if the cuts at the state level prompted them to go to 2%. Usually they do a 3%, right?
I believe the last one we received was a 2%, two and then a 0. So, yeah, I'm glad to see it trending in this direction for the, certainly for the employees. The state determines the elected officials will be considered for a 2%, but the other county employees would be, at your discretion, considered for a 3% based on that, our budget discussion. Item number 14 was, as we looked at other employees, much like we did last year, we're trying to take the money that we can. This was money that was after the budget was approved, we had earmarked a certain amount for, we call it a reserve, and I think by definition, any non-committed money is going to be your reserve anyhow, but there was a dedicated effort to set some aside to start building our fund balance back up. The money that was left, the residual, was the amount that was taken into consideration and looked at for additional salary increases. And I don't have the figure in front of me, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I believe it's about $110,000, $120,000. And so, again, we have incrementally tried to address county employees, and we're picking up a number of employees and trying to get them back to where their salaries should be. It's a work in progress, but this was a really good effort, discussion between the county clerk and our commissioners, and a lot of legwork trying to put a reasonable straw man together, something that made sense and had some justification behind it. So you'll see it listed here for our consideration, at least on the 16th, by facilities, and you see the total amount. It includes the 3%, approximately a 3% COLA, and that total amount for pay adjustments would be $320,000. So again, I encourage you to just think and look at that and make sure that we're ready to discuss and actually vote on that next at our next meeting. If I've left anything out of those items and the commissioners have anything that they'd like to add to it, certainly entertain that at this time. All right, we'll move on. Roads update. Ms. Fortune's credit and comment. We've had a couple of tragic accidents, both Thanksgiving evening and then the next night, Friday evening, on Highway 72. We also have a request in today for a look at Highway 106 and East Commerce Road. We had a couple of accidents there that did not thankfully did not result in fatalities, but still, it's a reoccurring thing. Many of these, not so much Highway 72, but some of our roads, again, the angle of incidence, the angle at which some of these roads approach an intersecting road is just, it creates a bit of a blind spot, and you couple that with a slight rise in the terrain, any number of things. If it involves a state road, we're looking to the state. If it involves county roads, much like East Commerce, some of that may fall to the county to actually make the correction, which means we'd have to talk to property owners on either side to see if we can get a little assistance in being able to bring that road into more of a perpendicular approach to the highway. Forces you to look both ways at that point, and not, certainly not to suggest that it takes the blame off of anybody, but it is a much better opportunity for people to see it both ways. On Highway 72, it's the speed and it's the volume of traffic now. So we will continue to talk with DOT. They're looking at it, make no mistake. Every time an accident happens and reported, it's documented. They actually track those, so.
Chairman, I guess was it 174 and 106 that was fixed? That was two state roads.
Correct.
And so that was,
They
quicker that way.
That's right, and that project was in the works for 2 years.
Right.
So it looks like it was quick, it's just we didn't know they'd been looking at it for 2 years, so, but that's, so are there any other issues with roads or whatever that we need to, pass along to our folks?
On those, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see, we can capture from our either road department, in combination sheriff department, the crash data summary report over the last several years to see what kind of really.
DOT actually, yeah, we can get that almost, for the asking, certainly, I'll see if we can.
72 putting going on the road, I
Right.
wouldn't be surprised if they come back with a hard cut recommendation or some sort of other.
Your highest incident rate is at the intersection at Ingalls, Glengarry and 29, just for the record, so. Think about how big or how high that number would be if you didn't have a light just prior to that, but nobody thinks about that, and there was questions about whether or not that was really needed, but I can assure you that there are people that are forced to slow down before they enter that intersection now, just by virtue of another light there, so.
Chairman, if I may, it's not a road update. I just wanted to, I'm sure everybody's heard of it here, but I would say, got to be a friend of mine, big man up at the house, Mr. J. Powell, the chairman of the House Rules Committee, passed away this past week. He collapsed at an event, passed away, and so I just wanted people to his constituents are gonna hurt, his family are gonna hurt. He was one of the good guys. Really tried to help rural, the entire state of Georgia, and he will be missed. I just wanted to mention that for the record.
Fair enough. Are there any urgent matters? We had talked among the commissioners, and what I wanted to do is before we adjourn our meetings, is to offer the commissioners, and I know tonight's probably not the night to introduce this, but I wanted to suggest that we will offer typically we offer statements and remarks from citizens. Commissioners are citizens as well. And what I'd like to do is make sure that if there's something that a commissioner has that doesn't necessarily require action, but it's just an announcement or something, that they have the opportunity to do that. And so before I ask about the last item or two here, I'll ask if any of the commissioners, and you can do it at the table, however you want to do it.
Sorry, I would've waited.
No, I know. No, I know. I should have, like I said, we chose not to put it as a placeholder, but I do want to start being a little bit aware that it's just an opportunity for you to suggest anything as well. All right.
Good.
No, I just, we talked about the meeting dates and times. Would anybody consider meeting earlier? I mean, you look at the time now, wasted time and wasted,
We just wanna make sure that the, folks are able to come and,
Yeah, it's gonna be public here, so it's all
are able to be
same.
here, that's the only thing. If they work out of town, that's the only concern I have.
And it's a fair concern. Like I said, this just, it's, food for thought. We have a county attorney that works out of the county as well, that we,
I'll be here whenever.
okay, we'd like you to attend regularly. So,
Could you make it on top? Just kidding. I didn't work. Could you make it on top?
any,
that was
Cruel.
I just had,
I just had a quick,
Did you make it?
comment and something that I'd just like to get the commissioner's feelings on, and discuss it with a couple of other commissioners, was, maybe, having a resolution that, congratulated the high school, not only the football team because they made it to the state playoffs and for the first time in 63 years, and they've been further than they ever been. But there's also other teams that did the same thing, and maybe if we could have something, you know, it'd be great if we had it toward the end of the year, some kind of resolution, just that we could read and.
Our academics are really good too for
Yeah,
growing
well,
academic teams.
I'm just saying,
No, you're fine.
I agree. I mean, I'm just saying that
Acknowledge.
acknowledge the high school and
Sure.
some of the good things that happened over there. I think that would be good.
Extracurricular activities as well as academics.
I just think it's impressive they've gotten the graduation degree, yes. Because I know where was that when me and Tripp graduated?
I mean,
we didn't graduate.
we could put that together, so, I guess.
no, I,
Gatorade National Player of the Year.
yeah.
And a lot of,
Mr. Chair, I had 3 items I thought of while people were going around. Did I interrupt you?
No.
You done? I'm sorry.
I'm listening intently to you.
We talked about one, the recent fatalities, I appreciate any effort to get into that, and if there's conversation with it, I'm happy to sit in with that one, if I need to. The other questions I have is, I know it seems to be coming upon us quickly, is if, and again, not necessarily for a report tonight, but if you disseminate some information on the board of elections, the storage question that came up after, discussions about getting the new equipment in, those types of things. Just wanna make sure that if we need to be taking action in a future date, that we don't lose sight of that. And then the other thing is, it may be a more district-wide issue, but I am continually, getting calls, about our new plant down there. And just wanted to reiterate that, there's, depending on who you talk to, there's concern with the air quality. We know that the railroad ties are an issue. And we're not, and there's a water runoff that's a potential issue, and there's still a potential issue with some of the noise complaints. And again, not for deliberation tonight, but I just wanna make sure that we're reaching out to the appropriate, either state or federal officials, that we can get proper information, so we can educate ourselves. And if there's a better way to do that, and I wanna be careful on not reaching out individually, when we have several different comments going out, or several different, it needs to be one concise to get the right information back, and that's what I wanna make sure that we're doing.
So here,
So I want to offer, since we're on this real quick, Board of Elections update. We do have a plan. We have a facility, secure, climate controlled, and is adequate in size. And it's actually in the CID facility, our criminal investigative division. Should be reasonably secure there. So we have made a provision to that. We have ample room, and then after tomorrow, the equipment that we currently use will no longer be used. Tomorrow's the final use of those. So that equipment will go back, and it will free up space at our current elections office for some of the tablets and things like that. So that one I feel very good about. So I think we're good there. And then lastly, I wanted to just say, I think we heard today that they have ordered, I believe is the correct term, I think the word I heard was silencer. It's a muffler type attachment or an appendage or something that's gonna actually go on the plant down at GRP to start addressing some of the noise. So there are efforts and some of that's starting to happen. And I understand at the meeting that the local community is having Thursday the 5th at 7 p.m. I understand they're trying to have representatives, a representative, maybe more from EPA, EPD. So it'd be good to have somebody there that can actually talk to the process and things like that too. So, all right, any need for executive session?
No, sir.
Thank you so much for your patience. Lot of housekeeping, we're done here. If I can get one motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned, thank you so much.
Yeah.